Let's talk about market. A lot of people focus on a bad market, and I'd love to understand what makes a good market for your offer.
In the book, I break down 4 factors. The first thing is you want to make sure that the people actually want what you have. All right. So typically I express that as pain. They're in some sort of pain. They're suffering some problem that they want to solve. And the bigger the problem that you solve, the more money you make for it. So number 1 is that they're in pain. Number 2 is you want the marketplace to be growing rather than shrinking, right? Because if you could have a tailwind, if you're going to do the same work, you might as well have something pushing behind you. The third one is you want them to have the spending power, because the worst thing in the world is you've got a market that's growing. There's a painful problem that you want to solve and that you have the ability to solve, but then they ain't got no money, right? A friend of mine had a resume business. He wanted to help coach people on their resumes and whatnot. And he called me up one day. He's like, this is brilliant. I'm going to make all this money. And it turned out, he was like, dude, they're all broke. They're all on unemployment. Now, you could make the argument that helping people with a resume inherently is not bad, but he had picked the wrong market to serve. If he had helped corporate executives get raises, he probably would have made a lot more money, right? But he was picking unemployed people to help them get a job rather than helping people get a better job, right? Tiny difference. But the lever on how much money you can make serving different audiences is the name of the game. The reason many of the Fortune 500 companies are enterprise, like Salesforce, they've gone down market now, but they built their value on the fact that they served very expensive customers, $1 million, $2 million, $10 million a year contracts. And it's because you get to charge based on the value of their business, not yours. And that's one of the beautiful things about this. And so many times the amount of money we make is partially due to the value that we provide, but a big part of it is the market. And the market I actually put before I put the value of the offer itself, because I think it's actually an even bigger determinant. So a different example would be like COVID with toilet paper. If you were selling toilet paper during COVID, it didn't matter what your offer was, because the supply demand curve was so strongly in your favor that you could sell for whatever you wanted. You were going to sell out. And so the idea is to try and align those 4 things. A friend of mine was in the newspaper business. And so he had an amazing offer. He would actually do a rev share based on only revenue that he would bring newspapers. And he was eating up market share. The problem is the market was shrinking at a compounding rate of 25% a year. So from year 1 to year 8, had already gone to like 5% of the original market size. So even though he was, quote, gaining market share, he couldn't grow the business. And he kept looking at all these things. I was like, dude, you're selling to newspapers. Like literally, I couldn't make this up. Like he was selling to newspapers. So he couldn't grow. It's an extreme example, but many of us are pursuing newspaper type businesses. We're selling to people that the marketplace is closing down, right?
Yeah.
Those are the variables that we look at within the marketplace. The famous example is the marketing professor who's talking to his class and says, okay, if you have one strategic advantage for your hot dog stand, what would you have? And everybody in this, is like, better hot dogs, better sauces, lower prices, better location, whatever it is. After it all dies down, he's like, a starving crowd. If you're out right in front of the bar at 2 a.m., you're going to sell out of hot dogs. If you're out in front of the stadium and you're the only hot dog stand there because everybody else is in their brick and mortar locations and you can wheel your cart up front, you're going to sell out. It doesn't matter how your hot dogs are. My point is not to say that you should make hot dogs. You'll sell even more, because if the next time the game gets out and your hot dog was good, they'll come back. That's the piece that people miss, is that anybody can sell one thing once. But the things that build the compounding businesses are the fact that the product is so good that A, they tell their friends, and B, they come back. And that's the unlocking that most people miss out on, because in the beginning, I'm going to go on this tangent because I think it's important.
It is.
When you are a new business owner, you have to learn how to promote. You got to learn how to market, learn how to sell. And the reason is not so that you can make money. The reason is so that you can get customers. You get customers so that you can learn how to fulfill on the product. What happens is you get a positive reinforcement from learning how to market and sell. And so then you think, mistakenly, oh, I should do more of this. But the thing is, if you don't have a big percentage of your business that's referral, your product is still not good enough yet. And so what happens is you will get to a point where you cannot outsell your churn. But the churn at some point gets too high that you just have to sell more people to break even. And then you have too much overhead because you had to hire all these people to sustain it, and then you're fucked. And that's what happens to a lot of businesses. And so the path from going to 0 to 10 million really fast is not the same as going from 0 to 100 million really fast, because you build the business differently. Because you build it knowing that you have to have a compounding vehicle. You have to have a compounding force. So as you go to colder and colder markets that you have to reach to advertise to that cost more and more money, and you have higher and higher fixed costs of infrastructure, the only way you can continue to scale is that the customers that are buying in that cold market tell 5 other customers. Otherwise, you will not be. What happens is your revenue scales up, your profit decreases, and then eventually you have a break-even point. And that's where many businesses go, because they're trying to build their ego by showing their top line, rather than building a business that has an amazing product. And they can't take the ego step back and say, you know what? we're going to cut down our marketing, we're going to cut down our advertising, we're going to cut down our sales team, and we're going to spend this year fixing the product. And what's crazy is when you do fix the product, the business will grow back on its own. And then you have the contribution margin from each new customer that you can go into colder markets, can spend more money on acquisition in different channels because you make so much money per customer. That is how you unlock the scale. You have to get sequence right. People sell first and then don't stop and think, I'm only selling so that I can learn how to fix my product and make it amazing. You have to get some people to buy, for sure. But after that point, that's not the point you hit the gas. That's where you actually pump the brake, keep marketing and sales on a slow burner, fix this. And if you fix this right, you will keep growing. And then at that point, you double down and you gas it.
Yeah, that's a flywheel effect.